Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you all good.
Um, so yeah, you got my email. I think the easiest way to do this is we just make them all. And I think if I make you a co-host, I think you can't make other people co-hosts, but let's just try that quickly.
Sure.
Um,
I'll hop in on my other computer so we can test it.
oh, right. Okay, so you don't want me to make your current computer. You don't want me to make what's up.
If you make me a co-host, I can't test if I can make anybody else a co-host because we don't have anybody else.
Um, we will have someone shortly. So I just made you a co-host. Oh, I see. You're saying that's why you're adding someone else. Okay, did I make you a co-host or not? More.
Yes, I am a co-host.
Okay.
So no, it doesn't look like I can.
Okay, hold on. Let me try this. You can't, you're saying.
No, I can let participants share their screen, but I can't make host.
Okay, so I'm going to make you the host. This is what I thought I would have to do. And I guess the question is, if you make this other person, if you make your other Rowan a co-host now, and then you make me the host again, do they stay the co-host? Because if that works, then once you're done making everyone a co-host,
Okay.
you can probably um, run, because I think the deal is that once everyone's a co-host, they can go in and out of meetings as they choose. And then I can just set up a bunch of meetings and I can just say, you'll randomly be dumped into some group, but just move.
Right. Okay. I think that I did it. Because that computer's still a co-host, and you're now the host.
Well, I see one Rowan as a co-host and I see the other Rowan not as a co-host.
Right.
Maybe it's that once you made me host, you are no longer. So
Exactly.
this Rowan is the Rowan that was the host and is
Yes.
now not. Okay, so I
Quite
need to
nothing.
I need to make you host again. Um,
Hmm. And then I can chill until
right. You
someone.
may want to stick around. I mean, if you don't mind, if you just get
Oh,
work done,
sure.
you can just turn the volume down, and I'll wave my hands, or maybe if you'll just like glance at chat or something. What's the best way? Should I text you if I have problems to get your attention?
I'll just leave the volume on. You can say Rowan, or you can say
Okay.
in the chat or whatever.
Okay. Because I think as they come in, you can just make them co-hosts, and then they'll be able to migrate.
Okay. Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna just do some other frantic work for a second here.
Okay. And I am gonna get off on this computer and chill.
Right, but you are the host. Yes. Okay. Good. Um, all right. Great. Hey everyone, can you hear me okay? So that's a yes? Okay, great. Guess we're always so quiet, but that's okay. So welcome. I'm really excited for us to do our first case study today. Um, Hopefully the technology will cooperate with us. We have a guest who you're familiar with, Rowan Hannon, who's going to try to help us with the technology today. Make sure things are working okay. I don't see quite the whole group today, but that's okay. Bunch of things I want to talk about before we kind of launch into the case and stuff. So let me start by doing a screen share here. Make sure we're actually recording. And we are recording for those who are not able to make it. And let's see if everything works today. All right, I want to do big screen and I want to share this. Is everyone looking at a PowerPoint right now?
Yep.
Cool, thank you. All right, great. So a couple of details we're going to talk about today. I want to just say a couple words about where people are with the assignment, and I was pretty psyched to see where people were actually, or a lot of you anyway. Just mention a couple things about things coming up next week, just so you guys are prepared for that. Do a tiny little exercise. Actually, I think I'll do the exercise after I talk. Well, maybe I'll do it before. Can't remember where I put it in the slideshow, but it's in there someplace. And then talk a little bit about biodiversity, and then dive into today's case. So I'm going to try to be efficient and not lose a whole lot of time to technology today. And start just by, well, that's where it did that. I'm just going to put all this stuff up there because it did something strange. Just say a couple things about kind of where we are in terms of your projects. So as I think everyone knows, you've got an assignment due by the end of the day today, so you have a little bit more time. But I was really pleased to see a lot of people taking the exercise very seriously about kind of transcribing the content from your interviews last weekend with Maddie. Identifying quotes. Some of you are already taking that important step of identifying what psychological principles are relevant and then beginning to create slides. I thought I would take just a second, because some of what you're doing is so darn cool, to just say a couple things about what I'm seeing right now. So I'm going to share my screen for a second. Let's see, this is what I want to share. Yeah, that's what I want to share. All right, so hopefully everyone's looking at my browser right now. And there are several pieces to this assignment, and I want to make sure everyone is sort of on all the pieces of this assignment. Are you guys are looking at my my browser window now, right? Yes. Okay, good. So the first thing I wanted to say is that as you guys, okay, so this is, so there's this folder that has all of these subfolders for each group, and you guys have your files in there. And I sort of glanced around through here, and Madison, I'm going to put you on the spot because I happened to open yours, and there it is, and you've done a good job. So I wanted to highlight what you're doing in here. So this is what we actually want you guys to be doing on this assignment, which is you've transcribed quotes and answers that you found were particularly relevant from the article. You've taken the quotes that you think are particularly good. The one thing I will say, I would like you to highlight quotes that you're actually going to use here in yellow, but Madison may have been using all of these. Madison then copied down sort of a raw quote and then created an edited version that is shorter, retaining the principal wording, ideas, ways of saying things, but just making it terser. This is really critical. Most of the quotes I'm seeing so far are way too long, and most of them can pretty easily be edited down into much shorter quotes like Madison's done here. But here, this whole reasoning and the core principles, this is key to the assignment, doing this piece of it where you're writing down why you think this quote is actually going to have an impact and how you think it's going to have an impact. So this is kind of a critical piece of the process. And the next assignment after the assignment that's due today is for you guys to comment on each other's quotes. And it's in these documents that you will be making your comments. So someone who's the other group members in, I forget what group Madison is, and I've already lost that, but the other group members are going to come into this document, and if they have, other things that they're seeing, hold on, there's like a lot of chat here. There you go. All people are saying really nice things about Madison. That's good. I like that. Positive feedback's very good around here. I was worried you were saying something was going wrong here. Hey, Rowan, if someone makes some comment in chat that I need to pay attention to, please say something.
I'll
But you guys,
know. We're
okay,
just hyping each other up at the moment.
that's good. I'm glad you guys are hyping each other up. That's really positive. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's perfect lead in for today's case, too. But so maybe one of you will say, hey, you know what? I think there's another principle here that I'm really seeing in this quote. And you'd sort of insert a comment about that. Or you'd say, I don't really see how it's matching this one. But whatever. Or you might have some suggestions on ways to alter wording further to make it even shorter. Here is some of the great content, and most of you are already there's lots of good content in here. Some of this stuff is really quite spectacular, what you guys have already done. Remember, you always want to start with this, the core principles. You want to make sure that your quotes are achieving these core principles, and in particular, they're achieving them for the audience that would see this content, which is an audience of local members of the community, the larger community. So if it's very student-focused, it ain't going to work. It has to be written in language that everyone in this larger community who's not at Oberlin College, not in our class, is going to understand what the heck you're talking about, and also kind of feel like it's about the community. But at any rate, there were a couple slides here that I marked with actually many slides that I thought I'd say something about. I have very little to say about this slide, except I think it's really good. It's got a very clear focus on sort of economic dimensions of sustainability. But anyone have any comments on principles they think this one illustrates? Which of the core principles is this one illustrating? Anyone want to offer one? No one's saying anything. Someone say something.
I think that it might have to deal with the principle of, I was going to say self-interest and community interest, but now I'm not quite sure. I still say that because of how the actions of introducing, how local actions and implementing that in your household and how that develops over time eventually as self-interest becomes a community interest as well.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I would agree with you. I'm assuming that, Noel, even though I have to recognize your voice. But I assume that what you're saying is like, if it's a circle and you're part of that circle, then there's some self-interest in there too. I mean, if you want to have access to good shops in your local economy, then you have to purchase from those shops. So I think it has several of these. I mean, it feels like with the photograph, there's sort of a bit of a story there about this person is, shopping. It's obviously about them, so it's kind of got that one in there. I think in almost all cases, this one should be relevant. It's leveraging social norms. This person's saying, I do this, trying to essentially create a social norm. This is something that we can do and we should do. So let me just find another one of these quickly. This is a nice one. The one thing I would say is I want to make sure that all of the photographs included are either from Oberlin. This photograph doesn't happen to look familiar to me. It may be from Oberlin, but either your photograph is of Oberlin or it is squarely on the person, kind of a headshot type deal of the person who is making the comment. Because people in Oberlin recognize Oberlin locations, and if it seems like it's a photo from someone else, it's not really working in terms of our target audience. So again, I don't know where that photo came from. It may well be from Oberlin, but it doesn't look familiar to me. And most of us in this community are really familiar with Oberlin spaces.
Nobody says Langston mural.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Then we're good. That's perfect. But it's nice and short. A lot of these quotes are very long. And I think there's a lot that could be done just to, there's a lot you can do to say basically the same thing with a lot fewer words. Um, you know, if you said the shop owners are welcoming, which helps to build a stronger community, you don't really need the homey places stuff. That's implicit in there. You could just make it much shorter. And the shorter it is, the more likely, remember we talked about a lot of these messages get read with very little mental attention going into them, but with potentially a very positive impact in terms of social norming. The more text you have on here, the less likely it is that information is going to get into someone's head, because they're not reading a lot. So shorter is more impactful. And I would say with many of these, it's a great message. So no criticism on that. And it has great potential for slight modification. But just looking through here, I don't even need to look at these to say that is way too much text on every one of these slides here. This is a good amount of text. These are just way too text heavy. And sometimes it's the case that in some of the slides I noticed, some of you are saying, like, you have two different ideas. Break it into two different quotes. You don't need to pack everything in. But we don't have time to spend a lot of time on this. But here's one where I think the quote could be a little bit shorter, but the photograph this is a great example of how a photograph is really, really grabbing you and doing a really nice job of reinforcing the quote message. So it's a nice example of combination. Generally, when you have people say, "I think it's really," you can dump the "I think it's really." You could just say, "It's important to build connections." Like "think," "it's really." Those are not actually moving. They're not necessary. They don't actually add anything to this. Yeah. I think if you just had, "It's important to build connections with residents," there's so much that you could miss out on. That would be a great quote in itself, just cutting out the middle, and it would just make it shorter and take really nothing away. The bubble, it's not really necessary, So really think about shortening these things, but powerful imagery there. So really great stuff, and people are choosing really good stuff. Yeah, you're doing a really nice job, but edit more. I just want to point out that that's my boy, cute little devil, isn't he? All right, we're done with that. Any questions on these before we go on? Oh, you guys are quiet. Okay.
I have a little question. I'm a little confused about using photos of people with quotes for people that aren't in the photo.
Right. It's a very good question. Very good question.
Yeah, it seems a little confusing because like I would look at that if it's on the board and think that the person speaking is the person in the photo.
Right. Well, here's the deal with that situation. In this one, it's not, since the photo is not centered necessarily on any particular person, it's not really implicit that Noelle is in this picture, right? But if you had a photo that was centered on one person and you had a quote, it implies a lot more that it is the person. So it's kind of a context and field dependent situation. But it is something you definitely need to be careful about. You want to avoid a situation in which you are implying that the person in the photo is the person speaking, unless the person in the photo is the person speaking. And I believe we've encouraged you to ask your fellow students for photos of themselves so that you do have some material to work with on that, so that you can have a headshot. And that's the one place where a non-Oberlin photo is okay. If the photo is really squarely on the person who is interviewed and there's not a lot of sort of like location-specific content in the background, that would distract people into thinking, wait, that has nothing to do with our community, then it's just fine to do that. Or better yet, you have a picture of someone in the class actually in Oberlin. So you may want to reach out to the person you interviewed, who's obviously in your group, and see if they can give you a headshot or something like that that they could use. A few of you, it's not mostly the case, but a few of you gave me headshots for my learning your names that actually aren't bad and would make pretty good content. So I have a couple shots that might be useful. Most of those shots were obviously taken just for ID purposes and aren't really great photos, but a few of them turned out to be pretty decent photos. So, but you ask people for those photos. But it's a good question. Does what I say make sense? Does that make sense? Yes.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, wonderful.
I have a question really quickly.
Yes.
So someone in the chat said that we had to have 2 slides at minimum per person.
I think I said just 1 slide. Did I say 2 slides?
You said 2 in
I said 2
on Blackboard.
I'm just like having organizing all the information. I was wondering where the information for that was.
Well, all the information, everything about this assignment is in one document, which is the instructions for the community-based project / community voices stuff. All information is in that one document.
Okay.
So just
and when we're choosing photos, should we not repeat a photo that's already on the slide?
Absolutely. If you read that document, it says that. Yes, you cannot repeat. That's why if you look at the instructions for finding photos from the database, it explicitly says check the little box that says this photo is not being used. You cannot use a photo that's already used.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
In the Community Voices assignment document, it just says CV slide created. I don't see anywhere where it says 2 slides per.
Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell for me. For this first assignment, I thought it was 1, but I certainly sometimes make mistakes and put contradictory things down. So if someone can find that and sort of send it to me, I would appreciate that, and then I'll straighten things out and make sure everyone understands what's going on. All right, cool. Let's actually let me just, as long as I have you out of PowerPoint right now, I think I want to just say a couple words about case study stuff, because I got an email or 2 with people who are slightly confused about various aspects of that. So what I want to point out is that if you click on the link for today's class, you obviously get to this page. Everything you need to know about the case study for today, which hopefully all of you found and carefully read, is here, but also here are the guidelines for writing case studies. So there's the case study, there's the guidelines for writing case study, so that's just the second link. There's information on citing the literature, and there's a link to the folder that contains templates for all of you. So every bit of that is right here. So if you have questions on how the case studies work, try to look in this material first, and then if you don't find it, ask me a question about it. But all of the information for the case and how to, you turn it in simply by filling out the template. You don't need to take any further actions. And please use the template I created for you. It creates great confusion if you make a copy of it. There's a template for every group, and every group turns in a case study. And by default, it's character A for this first case study who will turn the case study in. Each of you will do 1 case study over the course of the semester, but it is the person who is assigned the Sally Fairview role for this one who would naturally turn it in. Now, if for some reason your group wants to trade who turns in the first case study, I'm okay with that, but you'd have to negotiate that within your group. If whoever's Sally Fairview is, super busy or whatever, has some other reasons why they don't want to turn in the first case study, they don't want to be responsible for that. You guys in your group can decide how you want to do that and let me know, and I'm okay with that. Any questions on organization of case study stuff? Just wanted to make sure you knew it's all linked in today's stuff. Everything you need to know is there.
Is the case study due by the end of today or by the end of class today?
The case study is due neither of those situations.
Oh, okay.
It's on the syllabus. It is on the top of the case study too. If you look at the top of the case study, it is actually not due for over a week. See that? Do you see what I have highlighted here?
Yeah.
And it says the same thing in the course in the syllabus. If you look on the syllabus, all the dates are there. And I will remind you guys too that there's a calendar, a Google Calendar posted on Blackboard, and I gave you instructions for how to add that to your own Google Calendar if you use Google Calendar to manage your life, which I encourage you to get in the habit of doing. It's very useful, good way to stay organized. That calendar has the due dates of everything on it. So if you were to insert that calendar into your Google Calendar, everything for the course would be in front of you, links to everything you need. It's all there. So for those of you who have taken advantage of that, it's a good thing. It'll make your life easier if you do that. Make your life more organized. All right. Stop sharing. And let's go back to PowerPoint here. All right, so the near-term assignments are quotes due today, feedback to group members on quotes and slides. You're going to need to select an interviewee and schedule that for next week. Maddie is hard at work on collecting on securing the OC students who will be interviewed. All you're going to need to do is find those, is basically sign up for those students and then schedule a time to meet with them. All right, just to say a little bit about next week's class. There are the focus of next week's classes is climate change and political systems, and actually we're going to focus on political systems as they relate to climate change. So there are readings for those. I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's what we're focusing on for next week. I've already kind of gone over all of the materials for the case studies, and so I think we should be good on that. Any questions on any of this? Okay. All right, so I want to very briefly say a couple things about biodiversity. I'm not trying to convey a whole lot of information about biodiversity. It's in the readings for today, and I expect you to draw on those in your case study. But I do just want to point out some issues where I think there are some misconceptions that are worth understanding. One is that biodiversity exists at multiple levels. There's population biodiversity. We were talking about the genetic diversity within a given species, and that's one level. There's diversity at the community level, and usually when people talk about biodiversity just generically, they're talking about the number of different species. So that's oftentimes what they mean. Just also, we can talk about ecosystem level diversity, different kinds of ecosystems that are within a location. And then there's sort of biome level biodiversity, where we're talking about kind of the diversity of the earth as a whole. So it's important to understand that, like many other things, there are these sort of hierarchies, different levels of diversity, and all of them are really important, and they're important in different ways and in different contexts. Later on, when we talk about agriculture, for instance, in this course, we'll talk about the fact that our contemporary modern industrial agricultural system relies increasingly on fewer and smaller pools of diversity at the population level. For instance, the corn that I'm looking at as I glance outside my window right now, the corn and soybeans, those are mostly hybrids that are clones of each other, which means every plant out there is genetically identical to every other plant out there. So very, very low genetic diversity on that level, which is on some level makes for very efficient farming. Everything matures at exactly the same time, harvested at exactly the same time, but does increase vulnerability, reduces resilience, which we will get back to the resilience issue. But okay. What do we know about biodiversity? Well, there's been a lot of research, and you read a little bit about this, about how diversity affects function. And it's not actually as clear as many environmentalists would like to claim, that more diversity leads to greater function. Turns out, and there's a huge literature on diversity versus function. And I've been involved in some of that research. Some of my students have gone on to be, leaders in research on diversity versus function. It turns out to be really complex, that relationship. It's not as simple as many would like to say, where, well, if there's more diversity, there's better function. But we do know that biodiversity is useful to human beings in a whole host of different ways. We also know that it's decreasing. Habitat destruction, invasive species over-harvesting, disease, and pollution are responsible for a major loss of species, a massive, basically, species extinction that's going on right now, largely as a result of habitat destruction is the biggest one here. And that's pretty straightforward. As human beings occupy more of the planet, the ecosystems that were previously inhabiting those areas that are now inhabited by humans and are highly controlled ecosystems are displaced, and the species that are in them are displaced. So it's pretty straight up why habitat destruction would do that. Today's case focuses explicitly on wetland loss. This is an interesting and slightly misleading map of the United States, in which the colors here indicate the degree of wetland loss in these countries. And you can see that Ohio, and I put a little red dot near Oberlin here, covering Northeast Ohio, is an area of high wetland loss, but all of California is an area of high wetland loss. The reason I'll say this map is slightly misleading is that California never had much in the way of wetlands. So you lose a few wetlands in California, and you've lost a high percentage of wetlands, whereas Ohio was 90% forested wetlands. And so here we're talking about massive loss of wetlands. Here we're talking about there weren't many wetlands to begin with, but in both cases it's a large percentage of the wetlands. So we're talking percentages on this map. We're not talking about absolute wetland loss. So that makes it slightly misleading. Well, we've talked about a little bit about the history of the landscape here, and the fact that it was 90% forested wetlands in Northeast Ohio before the Europeans showed up. Probably a little bit less than that when the native peoples were here, but I think they did a lot less hydrological alterations than Europeans did when they showed up. And we did these things. I showed you those pictures of people tiling fields. We lowered the water table. We drained the swamps to make them good for agricultural land, make it habitable for large numbers of people. So we've lost a lot of wetlands across Northeast Ohio, and that includes in our own Black River watershed here. Why does that matter? Why do we care about that? Well, we did get a lot of good agricultural land out of it, which we're still using for agricultural land. But obviously we lost the habitat for the organisms that once lived in those wetlands. But it turns out that wetlands provide a range of what are called ecosystem services. And we'll talk later in the course more about the concept of ecosystem services. But you can think of ecosystem services as the things that nature provides just by doing its thing. So it provides habitat for species, but it also provides things of great economic value. Wetlands are really crucial to flood control. Part of the reason that hurricanes are so much more damaging now than they used to be, it's not just because they're more frequent and bigger because of climate change. It's also because we've destroyed wetlands, which naturally buffer the force of the wind and do a lot to dampen the negative effects of storm events. So they do a lot in terms of flood control, erosion control as well. They capture sediments that travel through them. We talked about the importance of wetlands in riparian zones along rivers, and partly that's about erosion control and flood control. Also turns out they're incredibly biogeochemically complex and sophisticated. They do a great job of filtering not just particles, sediments, soil traveling through them. They do a great job of filtering out nutrients and detoxifying too. When you put toxic organic materials through wetlands, oftentimes that complex biogeochemical, ecological conditions in the sediments detoxify that stuff. So they're really quite economically valuable. And so we lose those services when we lose the wetlands. Okay, that's a real quick summary of the importance of wetlands. There's more in the reading and more in the case study on the importance of wetlands. Let's go ahead and talk about the particular scenario that we have going today. So Cleveland Hopkins Airport, it's our regional airport. Some of you probably flew in and out of it less than in a usual year because of COVID, but it's very convenient to Oberlin. It's 25 minutes away to get there. It does open us up to the world. So that's what we're talking about is the Cleveland Airport today. And the scenario is actually one that happened a couple years back, and I don't want to tell you what ended up happening. I'll tell you that after we're all done with the case study. But it's really a fascinating study in conflict and competing interests and compromise. And your job today is to really sort of dig into environmental problem solving. So all of the positions you've been given are very real positions. I've changed the names, but actually some of these characters are based on individual people. Two of the characters are based on actual people, just changed their names. And so they're very reflective of the arguments that were made, the competing interests that we had to sort of like contend between and figure out what we're going to do. Because Cleveland wanted to expand the airport as sort of an economic necessity. That was the argument. But the problem is that the area they wanted to expand it into was a wetland. And not just any wetland. It happened to be a wetland that the EPA rated as a very high quality wetland. And so what I'm asking you to do today is to represent the stakeholder you were assigned and present their views to your fellow group members in order to construct a recommendation for Mayor Frank Jackson, who's still the mayor. He was the mayor throughout this whole endeavor, and he remains the mayor of Cleveland, and provide recommendations on how we could address these different stakeholder interests in a way that probably doesn't make everyone happy, but at least addresses all of their concerns in meaningful ways and comes up with some sort of a recommendation that seriously values these contrasting perspectives on things. So in the end, what you're going to do is produce a 2-page recommendation on what should be done, and that is the assignment. So it will be written to Mayor Jackson, and it'll be in the voice of Sally Fairview, sort of summarizing her understanding of these different positions and making a suggestion to the mayor for how this should be dealt with, because the mayor needs to make a decision. The mayor is constrained by the EPA. EPA rules constrain what decision he can make, but he can make a lot of different decisions based on those constraints. Okay, so that's the case. Before we get into the case, I want to say a couple things about approaches to engaging in idea exchange with other people. And I think one of the problems of academics is that we actually do a really good job of teaching people a particular approach, which is the critique. And a critique is we ask you to read works by different people, and we ask you to basically identify and expose the deficiencies in certain viewpoints. And this has a lot of value because it develops your critical thinking skills. And as an approach, the critique approach is really quite fundamental to both the natural and social sciences, the humanities as well. It's a very important approach to sort of trying to understand the world by looking at ideas and picking those ideas apart to find out what's wrong with them. So very, very important approach. But I want to suggest another approach that's going to be that could be very important to you, and I think is an approach that, alas, is very lacking in our current political and social situation right now. And that is an approach that's sometimes called methodological belief. It's an approach in which you allow yourself to temporarily occupy a potentially alien viewpoint and really allow yourself to see the world through someone else's eyes, to get under their skin. Whatever the analogy is, it's about empathy. It's about trying to understand the world through someone else's eyes. Why the heck would we want to do that? The value is that it allows us to really deeply understand alternate viewpoints. And in general, if you really allow yourself to see the world from someone else's view, you can generally identify potential points of commonality, and it puts you in a much, much better position to actually get to a solution that's going to be satisfying or at least okay with everyone involved, instead of a situation where no one is happy. And at the end of the day, even if the viewpoint is one that you find really deeply reprehensible, so I'm saying you can even try this approach when you're dealing with someone who's, for instance, occupying some totally reprehensible position, let's say, a neo-Nazi or something like that. If you allow yourself to see the world through their eyes, at the end of the day, it actually allows you to understand their logic and maybe figure out a way. You're not accepting the validity of their position by doing that, but you're allowing yourself to understand it in a way that might allow you to address their issues, not accept their arguments, but to come up with some sort of a solution to a problem. Again, I'm not saying that this means that at the end of the day you need to accept the logic of the position. I'm saying it allows you to understand the logic, and that's going to put you in a better position to construct a meaningful solution to the problem. So, like I say, methodological belief, critique, both really important approaches. Today, I'm really asking you to exercise both of them, but from the perspective of your character. Be your character, speak in the first person, represent your character. Okay, we're going to do like a tiny little exercise here, and I want to be able to see you guys while I'm doing this. This is going to seem like a weird exercise. You see all these people with pencils in your hand. Just suspend disbelief for a second here, and do what I'm asking you to do. If you have a pencil handy, grab that pencil or a pen. Larissa, I see you with a pen. That's excellent. Okay, so what you want to do with that is you want to hold that below your eye level. Okay, so hold it below your eye level, so around here. Oops, I want that back up on the screen. Hold on. Oh, there we go. That'll work. That'll work fine. Okay, so here, I'll get a pen, and I'm going to start rotating this pen. I'm looking down on the tip of my pen, but it could be your finger. If you don't have a pen, just circle your finger like this. That's here, you can't see what I'm doing. I'm circling my finger. Here, I'll stand up a little bit or move back a little bit so you can see me circling my finger. I'm circling my finger in a clockwise direction. I'm watching my finger go in a clockwise circle, okay? But I'm going to do it with a pen now. So I'm looking down on that, and it's circling in a clockwise direction. And get comfortable with that. There's a little bit like, tapping your head and chewing gum and rubbing your tummy at the same time or something. It's not quite that complicated, but you're rolling that thing in a clockwise direction. And what I want you to do is very slowly keep your hand having that movement, but raise that up above, slowly to your eye level. Keep it circling in the same direction. And here, I'll get off my chair and go down so you can keep seeing me. And then I'm going to have it rotating in that same direction, and I'm going to be looking up at it from below. And I want you to ask you the question, when you look at it from below, which way is it spinning now?
Counterclockwise.
Yes, it's spinning counterclockwise. But damn it, you guys had it spinning clockwise, right? How's that possible? How's that possible? It was spinning clockwise, wasn't it? I said spinning clockwise. I think you guys understand clockwise. It was spinning clockwise. You knew it was spinning clockwise. And now it's spinning counterclockwise. How's that possible? It can't spin both clockwise and counterclockwise, can it? What's going on here?
We're looking at the back side of the clock when it's above us.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know.
Our what started out as our 12 o'clock became our 6 o'clock when we were looking at it from the bottom instead of the top.
That's true. but it's spinning in the opposite direction. All right, well, I'll let you guys think about that a little bit more, but fundamentally, this exercise is about perspective taking, right? I mean, what is truth? Let's look at this, at what I got in the lower right-hand corner here. So you've got this object with a projection on it from one side and a projection on it from the other side, and you are seeing different shapes. What is a circle in one is a square in the other. Both of those are true. They are true. There's no falseness there. And this is a little confusing because obviously we see right now, you know, in the media, in our political system, we see a lot of people who are saying things that just plain aren't true. That's a really different thing from basically seeing something in a different way. And I think the fact that people have gotten comfortable saying things that just plain aren't true has in some ways confused the reality that, in fact, you can look at things that are true and see something totally different. It's not just the case that two people looking at something coming to very different conclusions, one of them is necessarily wrong. They can both be right. They can both be right. They're just looking at it from different perspectives. And of course, you're all familiar with the elephant, fable about these blind men coming to look at an elephant and all sort of interacting with different parts of it and drawing different conclusions about what this system that is the elephant is based on their particular experience with that elephant. You know, touching the horns, and it's a spear. You know, the ear, it's a fan. The side, it's a wall. The leg, it's a tree. The tail, it's a rope. Anyways, you got that. It's different. You're experiencing things differently, and therefore you're seeing it differently. I want you to think about that as we go into this case, because I think that's an important insight to have going into a lot of environmental disputes out there. So it is the case that sometimes people say things that aren't true, and you need to call them out on being not truthful. But you know, frankly, most of our problems are problems where there are actually multiple perspectives on a truth, and the solution is not simply about knowing the truth. It's about trying to deal with different people's perspectives. Okay, so right. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this thing around. So let's get you set up for today's case. Okay, so you're going to have like a minute to review your stakeholder position. I'm actually not even going to give you that minute, but I want you thinking as we go into our first breakout groups. We're going to do 2 sets of breakout groups today, and the breakout groups are going to be different, so it's going to be important that you pay attention and look at what I put up on the screen. So the first breakout group is going to happen in a moment, and basically this is going to be one in which you get together with people who've been assigned the same stakeholder position. So we're going to have 2 groups that represent Sally Fairview. We're going to have 2 groups that represent Gordon Harnett, I can never remember which way I put those names, but whatever. 2 groups that represent Winnie Larson, etc. Sam Shore. There'll be 2 groups for each of them, and your job in that 10 minutes is to sort of like share with each other what you think are the strongest arguments of the stakeholder that you share in that group. And furthermore, you want to strategize on what are the most effective arguments you could make when you get back into a larger group in which you're going to be charged with, as your character, with making an argument about your character's position on it. What are the really key things? You're only going to have about 3 minutes to present that argument. So with your stakeholder group, again, all the Sally Fairviews together, with your stakeholder group, you want to be thinking about and talking about what are the key things we would present in a 3-minute, basically, elevator speech to our group about our particular view on this, our character's view on this, that's going to convince them that our view really needs to be valued, taken into account in the decision-making process. And you'll get 2 minutes for Q&A after that as well. And so the first breakout group is with your stakeholders. The second breakout group is with your home group, right? So everyone understand that? And I'll tell you how the numbering works, because I'm going to create a bunch of Blackboard breakout groups. And I am going to, Rowan has very kindly basically made all of you co-hosts, which means you have the capacity to migrate among groups. And because of the way the groups weren't working last time I tried to set this up, we did it this way, where you guys are all co-hosts for this meeting, which means you guys can choose to migrate among groups. So I'm going to tell you what group you're going to be in, but Blackboard's going to spontaneously, randomly dump you in a group, and the first task is to move from the group you've been dumped into in the group I'm asking you to go into. So you're going to be dumped into a group, and then you're going to instantly move to a group I've put you in. But again, here's the way it's going to work. First, you'll be in your stakeholder groups. You'll have about 10 minutes in there, maybe a couple minutes less than that. I'll give you some warnings via chat. So you want someone in your group monitoring chat the whole time, so you know when you need to leave. And I'm going to ask you to pay attention to what I put into chat, because I want you to come back when I tell you to come back. And then you're going to work in your working groups, and you're basically going to cycle through each stakeholder. So each stakeholder will have a total of 5 minutes, 3 minutes to present, 2 minutes to answer questions about their viewpoint on this, and then we'll move to the next one. So we'll go from A to B to C to D. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit more information now, which is that I realize that a few of the groups are missing members today. There are a couple people who let me know that they were sick. So I know that there are at least 2 groups, at least 3 groups actually, who are missing a character today. I will play all of the characters you're missing. But the way it's going to work is I want the groups to natively go from A to B to C to D. But if you were missing character A, I want you to stay in the non-breakout room with me, and I will argue Sally Fairview's position. And then you'll go back into your groups and you can B, C, D. And then I'll do character B, and then I'll do character C, and then I'll do character D. So I'm going to go through representing each of those characters for any group that does not have those characters. So you get that character represented. I love doing this. I love taking different perspectives. I think it's super, super fun. So I can argue any of these positions very powerfully because it's fun to do it. All right, so let me just say one more thing. We're going to have a discussion at the end, but this is all described within the case study itself, how your brief should be structured. So I'm not really going to leave this up for very long because there's nothing here that isn't described also in the case study itself. But this is where you're going. The whole point of our exercise in class today is to get the person who's assigned the task of writing this up, who natively is Sally Fairview, to be in a position to write the case up. Are there any questions before I go on? I'm about to tell you what groups you're going to be in for this for the initial breakout session, but I want to stop for a moment and just give you guys a chance to ask any questions you might have.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Would you prefer it to be 2 pages or 1,300 words?
1,300 words. It's the number of words, and I ask you to actually count the words in your report. So it is 1,300 words. Yeah, and don't double space. The documents are set up single spaced. I don't want them double spaced. I don't like double spaced documents. So just leave the formatting the way it is in the template.
Can you please make me a co-host? That didn't happen.
Becca, you were not a co-host, huh? Okay. Yes. Let me just see if I see anyone else who's not a co-host. No. That was Becca, right, who said that? Is that true?
Yes.
Yep. All right. Okay, so I'm going to assume there are no more questions. And so what I have up here in front of you are these first stakeholder position groups, and I'm going to reduce it to, you guys are going to have only 7 minutes because I'm running a little bit behind here. But so the people, these numbers on the left here are the breakout groups I want you to go into. So I will create 8 breakout groups, and you will be dumped randomly into a breakout group. So instantly after you go into that breakout group, if you are Becca, Hillary, Adriana, Noel, or Kobe, you're going to want to instantly shift into group number 1. Don't talk with anyone there. Just move into group number 1 as soon as I do this. It's just a limitation of just my workaround to make Zoom work for me. But take a look at this and make sure you see your name and see which number on the left is the one you want to be in. So make sure that does everyone know what number breakout group they're going to go into?
How do you switch between breakout rooms?
It's a good question. It is, you are a co-host, so I think you can just, you move yourself, but it's in the controls at the bottom. Unfortunately, what I see is a little bit different than what you see. So I don't know exactly how you do it, but it's pretty straight up. You look at the controls, it's probably under participants, and you can move yourself into, if you look at the participant menu at the bottom. Everyone know what group there is, so I can stop sharing this for a second? Everyone knows what group they're going into, yes?
If we are planning on switching with the person who is doing our write-up, like if we aren't Sally Fairview and we are going to do the write-up as Sally Fairview because that was automatically assigned to that person, should we role play as Sally Fairview? Like, should we switch roles in the discussion, or should we?
I think it's okay that you don't. I think you should, whatever you prepared, and I assigned you, your position based on your letter, just argue that position because that's what you prepared. So don't do the switching now, do the switching afterwards. It doesn't make any difference that you weren't Sally Fairview in this today. So yeah, just do the one that you're listed with on here, because this is based on what you were assigned. Is everyone good with that? Okay, so everyone knows what they're doing, and so what I want to do right now is go ahead and create 8 breakout groups, and you want to be very efficient and targeted in accomplishing the goals of figuring out what is your character going to say in 3 minutes. And I'm about to, let's see, let's make sure it actually created 8 groups. Yes, it did. Okay, so I'm about to open these, and you're going to be in the wrong room. Move into the room you were assigned. Are you guys ready? Go. And I'll be in the main room. You can go back out into the main room and ask me any questions, and then go back into your group. So if you have any questions, you can take yourself into the main room and then move yourself back into your breakout room. But here you go. Hey, I'm still seeing a couple people here. Are any of you guys having any trouble, Luke, Julia? I can't hear you. You're okay.
I don't know how to get to the breakout room that I'm supposed to go to.
What's that?
I don't know how. It just says I've been assigned to breakout room 5. Like, I don't know what button.
Right. I think you need to go into breakout room 5, and then you need to go probably down into either participants or breakout rooms and move yourself. Julia, what are you supposed to be in?
I am C. So Dr. Winnie Larson.
Right. So you want to be, but what number was that? You could have been in one of 2 groups. Which breakout group did I say you needed to be in?
I think it was 6.
You want to be in 6. So you should be able to move yourself into 6.
Okay, I'm gonna try that now.
Professor Peterson?
Yeah.
I had to like rejoin Zoom because my
Oh,
computer
okay. So you are not now a co-host, huh? Okay. So I am about to make you a co-host, and then you should be able to do it. Okay. You are a co-host now and should be able to do your thing.
Okay,
Can you see
great.
that?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just
Yes.
got it. Thank you.
Ava, what's up?
I can't join my room. Like, I don't know how to do it. I think because I have a Chromebook, so the features are different.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out how to move you myself. Which are you supposed to be in?
In A2.
You're supposed to be in A2. How the heck can I do that? Ava, yeah, they put you in one. Let's see, move to. You're supposed to, yeah. Well, which group number are you supposed to be? A2. That would be room 2, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you just
There
get
we
an
go.
invite?
Yeah. Thank
Cool.
you. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Yes.
My computer died, and so I got kicked out of my breakout room.
Yeah, if that happens, if you end up in the main room, I can stick you into your breakout room. I don't I mean, you should have ended up in my space, and then I could have stuck you in your breakout room. Who said that, by the way?
Oh, I did.
I can't see who's on right now. It's not because people are popping in, so you're not popping up. Say your name. Sorry, I just don't recognize your voice. Who was that? Okay, so listen up. I'm not hearing that person, but we can take care of that problem as soon as we get you into your next groups. So let me remind you how this is going to work. Those of you who are missing person A shouldn't go into a group. Everyone else, I'm going to recreate breakout rooms and you will be put in the wrong room, and I want you to go into the room which is the number of your group. So as soon as I create these rooms, go into the room switch into the room that is the number of your group. And person A should immediately start making an argument about, or stating their position, not necessarily, I don't want to put it in terms of argument, but stating their position. You only have 3 minutes to do it, and then you got 2 minutes for questions. As soon as that, and I'd like you to try to keep track of time yourself. I'm going to try to throw times in just so you guys are switching. And it's important that you switch. In most public events like this, you're limited in terms of the time allocated to you. Debate the other night notwithstanding, in most civil discourse situations, people have a constrained amount of time. That's what they got. And so be respectful of that for your fellow group members. Yes. Are you guys ready? So it's going to be Sally Fairview, and then you're going to move on to B, C, D. But if you're missing the person, come into the main room, get out of your group, and I'm going to be there for you. So if anyone is missing Sally Fairview, and I can't remember who's missing who, just stay with me, and I'll go ahead and argue that position. Are you guys ready? So you're going to be dumped in a room and then switch to the room that is your group number right away. You need to do that. Are you guys ready? Go. Hey, Hannah and Emma, what's your deal? Do you guys need Sally Fairview, or are you just hanging out here? You guys are both muted, so I can't hear you. Ava, you're having the same problem?
Yeah.
Okay, where the heck are you right now?
I'm in 5 and I'm supposed to be in 10.
Right, you're supposed to be in 10, and why aren't it not letting me do that? Oh, darn you, it's not, why is it not letting me move you? It let me move you before. Oh, here we go, I got it. No, I don't. Oh, here we go. It's just, there we go. Maybe it'll let me do it now. Okay. So you want to be in what group?
10.
Okay. You got that?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Sophie, what's up?
Hi. So when I got kicked out, it took away my status as a co-host. So
What room are you supposed to be in?
I'm in group 9.
You're in group 9. Okay. I just sent you an invite. You should be able to go in. You got that?
Thank you. No, actually.
You didn't just get an invite saying you should go into group 9. You were in group, it says you're in, I moved you into group 9. Let me try something different with you. Because it worked fine for Ava, what I just did, but let's try this. Okay, you are a co-host again now too, so you should be able to move yourself. You should have gotten an invite, and you should be able to move yourself. Both of those things should be true. Do you see neither of those? You are now a co-host, so you have the ability.
Let's see.
I don't want to make you. Oh, I accidentally made you a host.
Invite me to
Hey, Sophie, listen up. I accidentally made you the host. You need to make me the host. Otherwise, we're screwed. Somehow it made
wait, how
you the
exactly
host.
do I do that?
Well, under participants, if you click the participant button at the bottom, you'll see that there's a camera thing, and next to that camera thing, you got a picture of me, and you want to make me the host, and then which I think you just did. Is that right? And I have again made you a co-host, and you should be able to now. Do you see that you're a co-host and you can choose where you go? Under breakout rooms?
Yes.
All right.
Sorry, I'm still bad at Zoom.
Well, I'm bad at Zoom too, but get yourself into your group.
Oh wait, it says you've been assigned to. I got an invite to breakout room 9 finally.
Yes.
So I'll just join that. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Hi.
Hey, Leah, what's up?
My computer glitched again, so I just got kicked out of Zoom.
You are now a co-host again.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, it's not giving me the breakout room option for some reason.
Leah, what room are you supposed to be in?
9.
Okay, I've also put you into 9, so you should also have an invite to go into 9.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Hey Phoebe, am I Winnie Larson? Are you guys on Winnie Larson?
I was Winnie Larson. You are.
What am I? You guys are out here with me, I assume, because I'm supposed to be someone. Yes.
Yes, Samuel Shore.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm Samuel Shore. I'm actually head of a smart growth coalition. And for me, the issue with the airport is really, it's kind of a systems perspective. I care deeply about the environment. My concern is if we don't develop at the airport, what's going to happen is there'll be pressure to develop elsewhere, and that pressure is going to actually end up expanding some of the regional airports. And I think what we're going to get then is a lot more traffic, a lot more car movement, and we're going to get destruction of wetlands and farmland someplace else. So for me, it's not a question of whether development is going to happen, it's a question of how development is going to happen. And I do not want this wetland to be trashed at the airport, but I would much rather have a small wetland at the airport damaged with lots of mitigation to take care of that damage, than to see the expansion happen someplace else, contributing to greater urban sprawl. The reality is the Cleveland airport is actually wonderfully centered adjacent to Cleveland. You can get to the Cleveland airport by public transportation. You can take a train there. So it's in a very good position for minimizing suburban sprawl and destruction of farmland and wetlands and everything else out in the countryside. So I think if you take like a systems perspective on this, it makes a lot of sense to keep that development concentrated where it is, where we can take advantage of its proximity to Cleveland. So, it's about balancing things here. That's sort of my view on this. You got to sort of consider the fact that what's happened to Cleveland over time is you've seen a spread of the population outward, not a growth. The city of Cleveland has shrunk, the suburbs have expanded, and that's exactly the kind of thing that does the most destruction in terms of like requiring everyone to have cars, and just, it's not the right way to develop. And so my position is, let's get everything we can in terms of mitigation. Let's do the best job we can with trying to really, value the fact that we're damaging wetlands here and do some restoration someplace else as much as we possibly can. That's my central position on this whole issue. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
I guess my question would be, where would the new wetlands be built? Because personally, as
Are you Winnie?
Winnie Larson,
Okay.
yes. Having native wetlands specifically in industrial areas is really important for water purification and those kinds of functions. So I don't know if a replacement wetland would fully fill those.
Well, listen, you're the ecologist. I trust your judgment. I would be happy to let you play a big role in helping us decide where those wetlands would be best positioned in order to maximize their beneficial impact on the environment. My only argument is we shouldn't kill ourselves protecting this little bit of wetlands here because of the potential damage to other wetlands. So, yeah, I'm happy to defer to your judgment on where those should best be placed.
Fair point. Fair point.
I think the main thing that we definitely all agree on is that if this airport is expanded, we all want the reimbursed wetlands to be properly reimbursed. All of us want that. And we're not in control of that. That's up to the mayor and who he hires to have that done.
Well, who's Sally Fairview? You have a lot of control in this. The EPA legislation allows you to, the mayor can't just do anything. The mayor has a lot of control, but I think the two of you have a lot of control. So I think we want to make sure we're communicating what we want to Sally. Hey, you guys who are rejoining, are you guys just dumping your group in general, or are you looking for a position to be argued?
No, we had all of our positions.
Oh, okay, great. You guys should now be on. Well, alas, we've run down on time. But what you want to do is have a discussion about how to compromise. We were just starting to discuss that within our group, and Liz slash, you must be Harnett Gordon, was just getting ready to make an argument. I think you had a suggestion, didn't you, for a compromise on this, something we could do, something we should try to maximize?
Oh, yes. I said it's really important. We all agree that if the airport is expanded, that the reimbursement of the wetlands needs to be done properly.
Right.
And
Right.
Sally has a big part of that.
Right.
So it's really important that she is aware that we all want this to be done properly. Otherwise, it will be a sacrifice that is just not worth it in the end. And that's not what we want.
Yeah, I think you're articulating just the right argument here, which is we're leading to the right question, which is how can we creatively come up with a solution that meets a lot of our stakeholders' desires here. I think that's the real key. And you guys have a lot of flexibility in terms of the creativity you can put into a solution that addresses potentially multiple solutions at the same time. And unfortunately, we're basically out of time for class, but I really would encourage groups to get together to discuss this. And I'll try to allocate a little bit of time at the beginning of next class. But I would like to seed that with discussions that you guys have had on what a potential compromise solution might look like here that would at least meet the arguments presented by different people. Not everyone's going to be satisfied. I know that sometimes Winnie Larson can be pretty strident in her positions because she has a pretty strong view on this one. And Harnett Gordon is sometimes a little opinionated on these things too. But getting something that works for everyone is the key here, or at least has pieces that work for everyone, that really sort of values the three dimensions of sustainability, the social, the economic, and the environmental is kind of ultimately your goal here. So we are down on time, guys, but for those of you who've returned to the group now, what I'm suggesting, we had a bit of a discussion with one of the groups here, throwing around some ideas about a compromise solution. I'm going to encourage you in your groups to, if you can, set a time to meet and do some brainstorming on solutions, and we'll talk about some of the ideas that come out of those brainstorms at the start of Tuesday's class. So I ran down on time again. Sorry, this whole Zoom thing is like totally throws me off my game, but yeah, that's where we are. So, yep. I'll stick around if anyone has any questions, but I know some of you have to rush off to your next class. So I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, I'm encouraging you to now switch to focusing on what can we do. You've heard everyone's position. What can we do to put the pieces together and come up with something that's a good recommendation for the mayor? If anyone has any ideas for that, we could throw some ideas out right now, and that might be good food for your discussion. But again, if you have to go to class, go ahead. But I'll stick around for a few minutes if people want.
Yeah, I just was wondering, in terms of creativity, because I don't know exactly like what parts are sort of like off limits to negotiate and what parts we can actually manipulate. So for example, it says that like with the expansion, 88 acres would be destroyed in wetland. Are we allowed to propose the idea that, oh, we could make the expansion a little bit smaller so a little bit less wetland is destroyed?
No, that's a good question. But in this particular case, the reality of the airport expansion was they're building a runway. They need the space. So it's a good question. And I think in some situations, you might be able to sort of compromise on the amount. But this is an all or none situation in terms of that area. They need that they just need that engineering wise to do the expansion. So that's not a potential compromise in this one.
Is there any way that they could expand in a different direction, like that it isn't like directly on top of the wetlands?
No, if you've been to the airport, you understand it's got roads all around it and industry all around it. There's no other space. It is what it is. There's nothing else there. So again, in another situation, that might be possible. In Cleveland, it really isn't.
So are the grounds of compromise mostly having to do with the alternate wetland project and how exactly that will look?
Well, I think you've got a lot of room. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to get ahead in terms of some of the ideas that people have come up with in the past. But if you think broadly about what your objectives are in this, they are obviously about actually getting wetland function, but they could also be about education and you could expand it even more broadly to other aspects of the environment. I mean, you could make stipulations about the airport. A lot of people travel through an airport. An airport is a transition point. Is there something you could do in the airport as far as education goes? I mean, most people don't understand wetlands are important. And I'm not saying this is an alternate to wetland construction, but what else could you do in terms of, and I think some of the challenges that no doubt came up are the problem that several of the stakeholders identify, that right now the sort of monitoring of wetlands is pretty problematic. You could certainly put stipulations in there, or think about who would you like to actually be managing these wetlands. How would you ensure that they're going to achieve the functional goals given the constraints that are in various stakeholder positions? I know in the group I was talking with, there was a question about distance and whether they should be urban or more rural, and what the priority was on that. Those are all things that you can think about and be creative in terms of what you might do. Other ideas, or any ideas you guys came up with? I realize we didn't really get into the brainstorming, but I know the group I was working with seemed to already have some ideas. So
I have a question. So I was wondering, how is this played out in real life? How is
I can't tell you that until after you've come up with your ideas. It would tarnish your creativity. Don't look it up. Your job is to be creative here. If I tell you what happened, that would spoil the whole thing. Can't do it, no. Sorry.
No, you're right.
Be like telling you the punchline before you heard the joke. Other questions, ideas? I will tell you, Noel, that it is interesting and strange what happened. It's very strange what happened, really. A lesson: reality is often stranger than fiction. You guys are living that life, though. You guys are living the life.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice day.